All right, well, welcome to our virtual parent coffee. We have started recording. It's so nice to see many of you here joining me today, and also my guest, our college director of college guidance, Janet Pacifico. I've got a few short announcements for you, as is my habit, and then I'm going to turn our program over to Janet. So, just a quick look ahead, some dates on our calendar. We will be administering the PSAT 8-9 to our own 8th and 9th graders in school on the 12th. And then we also have an opportunity to take that test and apply for the Pine Scholarship for 9th grade applicants from outside of the school. So nice to see those opportunities coming up. We will host our 100 Years of Cars car show on January 16th. If that's something any of you would like to attend or have enjoyed in the past, please know that it will be a little different this year. Cars will be parked much more spread out. We will require masks for people who are on our campus, even while we're outside. And hopefully just will enjoy a nice day seeing some beautiful automobiles with some good weather. So fingers crossed for that. January 18th, Monday, is Martin Luther King Jr. Day and will be a school holiday. We will follow that holiday by our honors assembly on the 19th. And then we have an all-school assembly or an event on February 2nd. That's our Women in Sports Day. That's a fun day we look forward to marking every year. And then we'll have our virtual coffee before this is upon us again, but we will have a 4-day weekend for students and a professional development day for faculty around the President's Day weekend. So just know that that's a quick look ahead. One of the biggest I would guess questions or conversations we're having right now as we look beyond February really has to do with some of the spring activities that we have enjoyed in the past here at the Pine School. We have so many performances we like to do in the spring. Evening of the Arts for middle and upper school. It's been our custom to have a school musical. We, of course, have some banquets to end the year for our student athletes and some other honors assemblies that we run towards the end of the year. And just know that we are trying as best as we can to kind of decide what it is we've got the capacity to navigate. And we'll get back to you as soon as we can about plans there. Our 4th grade is auditioning for roles in Aladdin right now, so we will have a lower school musical. Some of you might remember the wonderful job Mrs. Alvarado did last spring taking 101 Dalmatians into virtual space. That was a wonderful video she produced. And so I feel confident that even if our audience is enjoying this year's musical virtually, if we're just unable to have that live, our students are going to have a great experience either way, putting that performance together. So more updates to follow. I know there is definitely uncertainty though as we look at the events on our calendar ahead. Now for a little bit of health news. This is another thing I like to share with you monthly. I will offer to you, as I did last time we met, that many Pine families and employees are being impacted by COVID-19. I would say that it is definitely present in our community, and I ask that all of you remain vigilant. The single biggest thing that has been a help to us here as we have navigated school through COVID-19 is parents just being attentive about the health of their children and having their children remain home when they're not feeling well. That has just really been a gift to all of us. And so please remember that that daily health check, it's really important to go through with your children. Fever is really not the biggest symptom we might think in young people. And so just paying attention to your child's health will be of tremendous importance. Pine at home is always an option because of the vacation time and knowing that some in our community have likely traveled and seen others they wouldn't normally. We've got some families who have chosen to have their students continue with Pine at home or take part in that for the next couple of weeks. And that's been great. We're still so happy to have Pine at home as a resource available to our students. Last time we were together, I alluded to the updated quarantine guidelines, and now they are in place. So we are following different quarantine guidelines under the direction of the Martin County Department of Health as guided by the CDC. And so we will now have students quarantine for 10 days after they've been a close contact with someone positive for COVID-19. However, there's also an option for close contacts to test out of quarantine if they take a PCR COVID-19 test on day 5 or 6. Then day 7 could be their last day of quarantine if they are still healthy and symptom-free. And I think that this has been well received and given us a little bit more giving us a little bit more flexibility as we just continue to, get kids here when they can be back and healthy, and get employees back to work once they're able to be here. It's been nice. It's been nice, and families have been very cooperative in following these new guidelines. I continue to have questions every now and then about, well, why didn't I hear that? Why didn't I know? It has not been my habit to send out school-wide emails to the entire parent community, updating you all about, a particular case or something that we, we're following up on. And I don't always have, families wanting me to be that disclosive. Sometimes it's an employee navigating a situation and they're not wanting to be that disclosive. And so, again, I just want to express to you that you can confidently trust that you will hear from me if your child is a close contact on campus. And the way we're defining that is, you're around someone who is positive for COVID-19 for more than 15 minutes within a day, and within 6 feet. So, that would be sitting near someone in class, or, we've had some, like on an athletic team at practice together. All of those things would constitute close contact. But, it's not within my purview to really inform you about someone out, your kids, maybe someone out off campus they've come into contact with. I know that our students socialize off campus. And so, as a parent, you've really got to make sure you're following up and staying informed about who your child is with, and just counting on those families to get back to you if someone might develop COVID-19 and your child should be a close contact. But I would offer to you that things, for the most part, it's been going really well. I'm so grateful for the communication we continue to have from the Pine School community, and we do follow up and do our own version of contact tracing. We're able to do it more quickly than the health department, just because of that, that quick communication we've gotten from our community. And to me, what that really shows is the value that our school places on our efforts to remain open, and just wanting to do our part to keep everyone as healthy as possible. So that's my little health update. I guess I'll sign off by saying there are a lot more people who are currently, catching COVID-19 in this community, and probably going to have that be the case for a little while here as we come back from our winter holiday. So I hope that you all stay well and just monitor your own health. A few other updates to share with you. So some of you with older children might have seen the off-campus education email that came out from Tamara Litterick. We are going to, at least right now, press forward with offering our students some off-campus education. Our 5th through 11th graders are going to go to Circle F Ranch, 5th grade for one night, everyone else for a couple nights. The programming there at Circle F Ranch will be different for every grade. So it will be age appropriate. Hopefully it will just be a fun time for classes to come together, to bond, to do some goal setting together, and really just enjoy each other's company. We will be the only group at Circle F Ranch while we're there, and students will remain with their grade level. But I have faculty and staff support to provide the chaperoning that we need to go there, in combination with Circle F's own staff. So that is great. And this year, we'll go ahead and just include that in tuition for all those grades. I did have some questions about why we're not going to some of the places that I know our students love to go. In large part, it's because the programming we would typically take part in is not available. I think also that going pretty far afield might be a struggle should someone become sick, or if we have to swap out a chaperone. So just, given the circumstances, I feel much more optimistic about running a great program that's a little closer to home for our 5th through 11th graders. We are, however, going to take our seniors to North Carolina, to the the National Whitewater Rafting Center. They will have some great activities to enjoy there, and we're again, able to have the staff on hand we need to effectively chaperone that trip. And because they will be really largely with themselves, with the same students they'd be here in class with, I feel, at least at this time, like it is a trip we can take safely. So we will move forward with those plans. Your children, of course, do not have to go, but I would appreciate your filling out the survey that Mrs. Litterick sent, just so we can get going on the planning we need to do on our end. A couple other little announcements here. As you came onto campus, you might have noticed that we have some new security guards. We've made the decision to work with Allied Universal Security. It is a company that that hires security guards and staffs them in places like ours, that need security coverage. So it's been great to welcome 2 new security guards. We've got Garrett Henderson with us and also Akeem Harding. They're splitting the week. One thing that I think we discovered through conversation with Joe and just, kind of checking in with him is it is a long day to be at our gate from 7 or 7:30 until 5:30 in the afternoon. And so it is nice that we are able to split the work between a couple people. But Allied Universal Security, I think we will see consistency with the staff they provide to us. And it's been really nice to get to know both Garrett and Akeem. They're here and, we give them breaks and they come and they're having lunch and getting to know faculty and staff and students. And so just, join me in welcoming them to our school, and feel free to stop and say hello if you can do that some morning. The other thing that I will tell you about as far as security is that we have a new program we're using. It's called School Pass, and we've been rolling it out slowly, but it is a new gate and attendance program. So for instance, at the gate, we've got a camera there that can read license tags. And so it'll be really reassuring for us with our student drivers. We would know when a student driver arrives on campus, and would see when they would leave. So that is something really great about the comings and goings of students. We also use this now for bus attendance, and we will begin to use it if we haven't already for aftercare attendance. And also it'll be a digital sign out system for students. So we just feel like this will add, a little bit of a layer in terms of, avoiding mistakes. Maybe a student leaves and they forget to sign out. At least we would have that record up at the gate. So you will get some information about School Pass in the coming days from Mr. Needham. He's working with us on that integration. I don't imagine that it's going to be, all set, all figured out right away, but I think through time we are really going to enjoy this new program, and it is going to be an asset to us. So that concludes the announcements that I had for everyone today. I suspect that the big draw for you all showing up to this virtual coffee was to hear from Janet Pacifico, our Director of College Guidance. Many of you may know that Janet has been with the Pine School essentially since the inception of the upper school. And she worked as a college counselor with our first graduating class back in 2009. So she has been with Pine for the long road here, and just every year does a tremendous job offering our students the guidance they need so that they can find a place to go after Pine School that is a good fit, that is an appropriate, exciting college for them, given their interests and aspirations. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here, and I'm going to turn things over to Mrs. Pacifico. So welcome, Janet. Thank you.
Okay, great, perfect. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. It looks like there's a lot of upper school parents, but for those of you who are not, I am going to do a little bit of programmatic pieces so you understand a little bit about the 9th to 12th counseling program, and then kind of talk a little bit about current events, which, as we know, is happening on a daily basis, particularly in the college admissions world, and what the predictions were for this year and actually what we see happening on the ground. So let me just share my screen. So for those of you who may not be aware, we really start the high school program in grade 9. I've already met with the 9th graders 3 times. I've introduced them to our college tracking software, which is called Naviance, and that allows them to really begin to get connected to the college process. I will have my 4th meeting with them probably within the next 2 weeks, as soon as Mr. Carlson finishes up the schedule for the freshmen. And at that time, they will have their very first GPA, which they just got on their report cards yesterday. And we will take a look at that GPA. We'll talk about academic standings, and I will present to them the profile of the Florida public universities so they can get a sense of what the requirements are to get into the Florida public universities. So that will take place in the next couple of weeks. I did talk to a freshman mother the other day, And I guess she was not aware that her son has met with me 3 times already. So I think I'm going to start letting parents know when I do have those meetings. And as soon as I get the results back from this test that they're taking next Tuesday, I will meet with all 9th grade parents and share with them about Naviance and what they should be looking for and moving forward. I think the most important thing that they do in Naviance in 9th grade is begin their resume. And that's they track 9 through 12. So when they get to be seniors and do their college application as a senior, that's they really got the backbones of doing that college activity sheet. Sophomore year, we continue, but instead of doing a practice SAT, we do a practice ACT. What we have found over the years is the lowest it's ever been is 85%, but between 85 and 95% of our students prefer the ACT. So we want to make sure that they have a practice with that. We also continue with the resume, but we spend time doing a personality profile. And we like to do that right before they do scheduling, because that personality profile talks a lot about careers. And so the scheduling from 10 to 11 is a little bit different. 9 and 10 scheduling is pretty much the same for most students. In 11th grade, they begin to have choices. So when we begin to look at careers, we want them to take a look at the careers and look at some of the choices that they may have. And of course, those of you who have been with me for a long time know that junior year is when we really get started. Just to give you an example, next week I meet with all junior parents. Next week I meet with all junior students. And we break them up into small groups. So this year I will have 4 separate junior classes. And those junior classes meet with me 10 to 12 times. And by the end of the junior year, it's our hope that they have their entire Common App completed, which is the application they use for the college application process, and they have a good sense of what comes next. So we go over the transcript and GPA. We talk about college visits. Of course, that's very different, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like now. Demonstrated interest and interview. They practice interviewing. That was a little bit harder via Zoom this year, but we did get it done. About the essay, about school visits, and their brag sheets. So that when we get to the senior year, it's all about finishing up. Scholarships and bright futures and what that means, and all the individual meetings, in the hopes that at the end of the senior year, they all get to celebrate, enjoy reap the benefits of excellent planning. But now let's go to what currently is happening. I will tell you that for this year's junior class, it's the first time since I'm here, I did not update the step-by-step guide. I am recycling next year's step-by-step guide because I think the core of what we do is still there, but I will be probably doing current event highlights on a regular basis. So they will get many more handouts than they have gotten in the past. So April 2021, I attended the national meetings, and these were the predictions that all the experts in college, in the college world, said that ED, early decision applications, would be hit hard because of financial reasons. I'll talk a lot more about that in a few minutes. Applications would be geographically limited because people were afraid to travel. I will tell you that I think people got very comfortable with Zoom, and that did not play out at all. Although we did see a little bit more of Pine School students staying home last year, but that was pre-COVID. We, for the very first time, had a very strange application year last year where we had 5 students very early in the process commit to Rollins. So 5 students with early decision to Rollins. So that kind of skewed our out-of-state numbers, but that was pre-pandemic. This one was interesting. They really expected international applications would be down. And there were students all over the world logging into Zoom classes. It did not affect that. And what has been reported, particularly in the last 4 or 5 weeks, is international applications went way up after the election. International students didn't feel as welcome in this country under a Trump administration, and they went way up. Just to give you an example, early decision at Dartmouth University had 14% international applications in their early decision acceptance pool. And then the last one was colleges would have fewer spots because of students taking a gap year. And there was an expectation that many of the students would not go to campus, they would not show up on college campuses and pay $70,000 and have Zoom education. And once again, the early numbers show that many students at Harvard had asked for gap years. So everybody said, well, if that's what's happening at Harvard, that's usually the trend throughout. And it was not seen to be the numbers that colleges expected to happen. So we did not see the gap year expectations that everybody thought. What was totally unpredicted in April and May was the fact that schools would go test blind. California public schools, California, the entire state, has forever eliminated SATs and ACTs. Who would have ever thought they were the leader in changing the SATs 10 years ago when we added writing, that the legislators in California would totally eliminate testing. So not many schools went test optional, not requiring SATs and ACTs, but California is now officially test blind. If you send it to them, they will not review those scores. So that's basically what was predicted and what didn't happen. And I know this next slide is probably very hard for many of you to see, but I think it's so important, and I'll kind of talk you through. Early decision, and for those parents who are younger in grades, that's when a student applies early to a college, commits to that college, and says they're definitely going to go. Every prediction was that that was not going to happen this year, that people were nervous and it was not going to happen. MIT had a 62% increase in early decision applications. Just absolutely insane. Harvard, 57%. You go down the bottom, Georgetown, 19%, Duke, 18%, Tufts, 17%. It was unprecedented. And these colleges had to change what they did. So what they've been doing for 50 years, in months, they had to change how they looked at applications. They had no test scores to make immediate decisions, and they had to make a massive change in a couple of months with those kinds of numbers of applications. It was just an insane, but I think it mimics what we've seen here at Pine School. So this is some historic data for the Pine School. Just to give you an example, in 2012, we had 38 seniors, 193 applications to 127 different universities. 2017 was the last year we had a very large class. You see, 44 seniors, 234 applications to 124 different universities. And 2021, 45 seniors, 444 applications, 4 more last night, which are not included in these totals, to 143 different colleges. These bags under my eyes, they're coming naturally from this. Just to give you an example, I have never done what I did over Christmas vacation. Over Christmas vacation, this senior class applied to 84 colleges. There were 10 applications on Christmas morning. So it's really gone a little bit crazy. The one concerning that I have is that 143 different schools. So if you would have seen in the past, there's been a large number of schools that our students applied to. With those 440 applications, many of them are applying to the same schools. And that's the piece that's happened with the pandemic. They can't visit colleges anymore. So they're going with name recognition and doing things that previous classes have not done. I've spent so much time with previous classes talking about mission, finding that niche school. I think if you think about Lindsay last year, she went up to Connecticut. She looked at Wesley and she was looking at all schools, and she found a wonderful school in Quinnipiac. And if she had not traveled to Connecticut, she would have never found that school. She ended up going and loving it, and it's become her niche school. This year's senior class has not had the opportunity to find that small little school that they think is going to be great. So they had to throw a lot of darts at the wall. Some were successful, but for the most part, colleges really did not take in the same numbers of early decision. Just thinking, and you know, we go to the big boys because we get the statistics from them very early, but Harvard admitted out of 500 students, they admitted 150 less this year in early decision because they don't know what's going to happen in the next round. People are still unsure. What happened in this first round is because students didn't have to send test scores, many students felt without the test scores, they had many more opportunities. But in the first round, it allowed colleges to admit students with financial issues, and those were the type of students they were looking for. We have to remember at the same time, we had the Black Lives Matter come about, and colleges looking to create social justice and admit students. So lots was happening, and the early cycle shows that colleges were very conservative in the early cycle. What we saw here at the Pine School to address some of that, and it was wonderful. We, for the very first time, were able to offer the SAT and the ACT here on this campus. And that's why schools went test optional, because students had no place to test. And I will tell you that I'm not sure how that's going to play out. We were able to do that because of the pandemic. For those of you who may not know, if you want to offer an SAT on your campus, you have to say that you have spots for at least 100 students. And it's not 100 Pine students. It's first come, first serve. So we've never been a test site, because what would happen is that we would be a test site for students all over the county, and maybe our students would not get in. But with this change, we were able to offer testing just for our students. And I have to give credit to Ms. Caffrey, Mr. Carlson, Beth Lettengarver. I asked them to do this July testing. Well, I was not here to help them do that testing. So I really appreciate that they came in July and got our students to be able to take an ACT. And then we were able to, on PSAT day, offer the SAT to our students. So it was a great opportunity. When I addressed the juniors the other day about the PSATs, it's unfortunate. 49 states in the country have eliminated testing, except for Florida. So as long as a student's going to have a Florida public school application, they must have testing. So we will continue what we do about testing until we see some changes out of Florida, because we can't not have our students have that option for Florida. But we do know every other state in the union has eliminated, and many have already announced for next year. So we just have to keep abreast. I have my major meetings in April again this year, and I'll have more information about that. What we also did see is traditionally sitting on my couch have been college reps. Last year, there were 63 college reps that came to the Pine School. This year, via virtual visits, and that was kind of interesting how we spread out around the upstairs library and the hallways. We were able to have 92 schools do visits. And we had schools that we've never had visit us before. So, you know, the big publics, Clemson and Auburn, that has always attracted a lot of Pine School interest. They did virtual visits with our students. Georgetown did a virtual visit. And we had several California schools that were able to do virtual visits with our students. And it was a wonderful, intimate setting. They would get on with me for a few minutes, and I would, let them understand who was going to be in their audience. And the students almost had like private interviews with the colleges, and had that opportunity for face-to-face meetings. For me as a professional, I'm so accustomed, in Florida, only about 25% of our students leave the state. So we don't ever get the big boys to come down here and do face-to-face meetings with us. On admissions teams, we get a rookie admissions counselor sometimes. We don't get the deans and directors. And the meetings that I had as a professional were with deans and directors. And it was so wonderful for me to hear directly from them what was going on. And it was also, I don't know, I said this to Beth a couple of times. I said, I actually got very emotional at some of these meetings. The dean from University of Virginia, I've known him for many, many years. I've never seen him without a white shirt, tie on, suit, and be so staunch. And I sat in a meeting with him. He was sitting in his kitchen, and he had his grandchildren running around in the background. So it really gave credence to how we're all in this together. I told Binney, I spoke to the director at Tulane yesterday, and he told me he had to postpone his wedding 4 times. So it gave you a real feeling of what's going on. And the other important piece, which I can't thank the Pine School community anymore, is how very engaged the faculty was in supporting our students, particularly Mrs. Carling and Mr. Squire. Essays were critical this year, and the amount of time that they spent with our students working on their essays and helping them get through, whether they were Pine at Home students or students here, they were critical in helping our students get through the process. That was informational, and I've left time for questions because I'm sure that there's going to be questions. So I just wanted to kind of get that type of information out to all of you.
Janet, thank you so much for all of that great information. As you know, we've got a K-12 audience that we invite to these virtual parent coffees. And so, I don't think that our younger parents, have as much of an opportunity as they might like just to understand what happens with our high school students when it comes to college guidance. So I just really appreciate the perspective. And also just, one more illustration of how, so much of what we prioritize and strive for in education, we're doing it differently this year. But, to your credit and to Pine School's credit and definitely to the credit of our senior class, I sense from you that we're making the best of it. Even if it means we're filling out a lot more applications, we're still
doing what we need to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, I would just open it up. It's great that Janet saved some time for questions. Anything that you're just curious about, maybe from the industry perspective or something that you're just curious about. And I would honestly nudge a few of you with younger children, if you're sitting there wondering something, ask away, because as you might remember from the slides Janet shared, she does make a point to spend time with our upper school parents and include them in that partnership and college guidance for all of our students. Janet, I'll let people collect their thoughts a little bit more, and maybe we'll sign off quickly. But I'm wondering, like, from your time here and being a part of the founding of the high school. I mean, we talk about being a college prep school. How do you see that play out K-12? You're here on the campus with all these younger students. Is that a different feel for you now? And do you have any examples of maybe the role modeling that happens now that we're K-12 on this campus?
Something happened because of the pandemic that we all did some volunteer. And on day 7 at 12 o'clock, I do kindergarten. I do kindergarten playground.
Yeah.
And so the week before Christmas vacation, the kindergarten kids always ask me, where do you live on this campus? So we had a field trip up to my office, and it was so cute. And I don't remember which kindergarten kid said, she saw the Clemson banner on my wall. She says, my mommy was a cheerleader at Clemson. And so they begin to have those conversations. And when they first came on, that first group of kindergarten students, that I got to know are now in 4th and 5th grade. And most days I try to go down when fourth grade lunch is eating and talk to them, and they tell me about the activities they're involved in and talk to me. And then kindergarten kid class the other day asked, she says, are you bringing that lunch back upstairs to that pretty office? So it's those pieces that are so meaningful. I'm looking at next year's class, and I was with them when they were in pre-K. I remember going to that campus, and now they're going to be seniors. And as a college counselor, to be able to write a college recommendation of somebody that you've seen grow up, to me, I worked in 9 through 12 schools for so many years, and those of you who know me well know I cry when I write my recommendations. When I read back on everything that's been written about a child, it's like when I finish a student's recommendation, it's the most emotional for me that I get in when and I turn that over to my husband to read. And it's like, I wait there, like, you get the kid, you understand them. And so for me, having K-12, I just can't imagine ever not doing it with a K-12 environment.
That's really nice. That's really awesome to hear. I see a question that's popped up in our comments, Janet, and it's about how important volunteerism is as part of a student's program when they apply to college. It's often nice to show that commitment to to service above self or community service, and what we do to help foster that at Pine. I mean, we do have a graduation requirement. All of our upper school students complete 100 hours of community service. But are there conversations you have with students to encourage them to look for particular community service opportunities? I know we build some of it in here by grade level, but for the kids who have done that, maybe more robustly, any advice for these parents now, or just a story to tell?
Well, I spend a lot of time with them in ninth grade in talking about community service. I'm a strong believer in the intrinsic value of community service. And once they get to the high school, and I know there's been some people on campus that disagree with me, they want students to have a sign off for all their community service. And I don't believe in that. I want them to do community service that they want them to do. My greatest recommendation, particularly once you get to the high school, is that the students look towards their senior capstone project, because we want it all to kind of flow together, that their community service is something that they're interested in, and it's going to result in a great senior capstone. Those of you who know the students who work with River Kids, they were working for many, many years, and a couple of the seniors who were the beginnings of River Kids, they wrote a book for young children about what they learned about River Kids. Another student a few years back was very, very involved in working with dogs out at the dog ranch, Big Dog Ranch. And she decided that she wanted to connect with the Pine School as part of her capstone to create an adoption on this campus. And she did her capstone doing that. And it took a long time to get all the insurance and all of that done on our campus. So she took what she loved to do, what she volunteered to do, and eventually evolved into a capstone project. And the director at FSU, when I went up to FSU a couple of years ago, he used her as an example of a student that her essay on her capstone project made a difference in her admissions, because she was right on the bottom end of their credentials to get into FSU. But the state was working very hard on graduation rates. And when he saw that in October of her senior year, she was able to complete a capstone project, he said in his mind, when he read that essay, he said, this is a student who's going to graduate on time. And even though her numbers were low, he felt that, she had the wherewithal already. So we begin that conversation, advisors begin. Everything I do in 9th, 10th, and the beginning of 11th grade, I do with Mr. Carlson. He does the academic piece, and I talk to the students, and we are every year pushing to think about what it is that they want to do for the long haul. Because community service, 2 hours here, 2 hours there, really don't mean the same thing in a college application process. It's that community service that they can tell there's authenticity. So how do they create that authenticity in what they do? So that's why I don't like that 2-hour sign-off form, because that's not creating the authentic type of community service that the colleges truly appreciate. It's great, it's wonderful, and I would never tell a student not to volunteer someplace for 2 hours, but it's not that authenticity that really helps them in at the end result in when they apply to college.
That's awesome. That's a great perspective. I'm mindful of the time. It's 9:45 right now. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And I just want to thank all of the parents who are here for joining us. Let me just end the recording.